up, bros and brodettes? This is Brock Lee here. You know, back when I was at Taft, there was a lot of times when kids would just give me the side eye, you know what I mean? And I wanted to get in a fight like right away with them because it just was so mean. But the older I got, when I got into high school, I realized I could just be nonchalant about it. I ain't got time for that skibbity riz like that. So take your take your tip from me, Brock Lee. Stay out of the conflicts.
Hello, Taft Tigers. Mr. Gilchrist here. We're shifting gears a little bit, and we're moving into our next topic for character education, which is conflict resolution. So you're going to be hearing a lot of different ideas and thoughts about how to resolve conflicts that you're going to have in your life. So this video specifically, I wanted to kind of talk about and address specifically how to respectfully go into conflict. And then also, which I think is going to be really, really important for everybody to understand, how to avoid unnecessary conflict. So to start, I'm going to share my screen. And I found a really great article about how to avoid conflict. So when we look at avoiding conflict, this article is actually from PubMed Central, and it has to do with the workplace in this biotechnology company. So what that shows me is that conflict is everywhere. As long as you're working with people or you're around people, there will be conflict of some sort. So this article was written about 10 simple rules for avoiding and resolving conflict with your colleagues or the people that you have to work with or be around on a day-to-day basis. What I wanted to do is focus in on the first couple for this. I didn't want to go through all 10, but I think that the first couple are really important. So the first one is always treat people with equality and respect. And I'm just going to read this to you because I think it's really important. Whether interacting with your peers or not, treat people courteously. Don't prejudge individuals based on their rank or perceived academic ability, or worse, their gender, race, sexual orientation. Be polite and treat everyone equally and fairly. So that one really becomes the foundation for all of your conflict. If you struggle with conflict, or if you struggle with not getting along with other people, maybe it's family members, maybe it's teachers, maybe it's peers or friends at school or outside of school. If you go back to that very first rule of treating people with respect, you'll see some changes in that conflict. You'll see that the amount of conflict that you have decreases. You'll see that when you do go into conflict, it might look different than it has in the past. And then the second rule is seriously consider and respect others' views. So this one basically talks about people, if you're around them, are going to have different views. That is okay. You are also a person. And so the other person in the conflict, or the other person that might have a disagreement with you, they have to recognize that you have a different view than they do. And just because you have a view that you feel is right doesn't mean that they or that their view or their opinion should be dismissed or not considered. So it's very important that when you talk about conflict, those two things are present. Always treat people with respect, and then seriously consider and try to understand and respect their views so that you can have conflict that's productive. If you don't do those two things, oftentimes conflict is not productive. And I talk about conflict and it being productive, and sometimes people are like, well, that doesn't make sense. How is conflict, or how can conflict be productive? But to be honest, conflict is actually a good thing, because if you can be productive with a conflict, generally what happens is you produce something even better. So if I go in with an idea on a project that I'm working on, and it's all that I have in my head, that's all I can think of, and then somebody that I'm working with comes to me and says, oh, no, this is a way that we should think about it. And then we have that productive conflict, and then we produce a better product in the end. So if you're able to do those things, always respect people, and then always respect and consider other people's views and really be open to them, then the conflict that you have in your life is going to actually be better. So I'm going to use an example that you might go through at your age, because this is very common: conflict with parents. or guardians. And it's a very natural thing to have conflict with them. A lot of times what will happen in my household is if my daughter disagrees with the call that I have to make as her dad, she might get really upset with me and start complaining or whining and things like that. And what I'll do with her is I'll try to calm her down a little bit and try to help her understand the view or the perspective that I have when I have to make that decision. And once I'm able to do that, and once she's able to maybe calm down and look at my perspective or look at where I'm coming from, then we're able to come to a productive agreement or a positive agreement afterwards so that she understands. So those are the two things that I really want you to focus on with this week's video is always treat people respectfully and seriously consider and respect other people's views. But I'm going to go down to rule 10 because these other ones are important, but they're very long. So I wanted to focus on this last one, which is rule 10. If the problem is unresolvable, distance yourself. This is very, very important and very hard for kids your age to do because conflict is all based on emotion, right? You have an opinion or you're doing something and somebody says or does something that irritates you or frustrates you, makes you angry. Sometimes you might like, see red because you're so upset, you're almost enraged. If there is conflict that can't be resolved, get away from the conflict. That is the best thing that you can do. I have a personal story from this. When I was about your guys' age, I was in middle school. I was walking through around my town, and there were some older guys that came up and just started talking crap to me. I didn't really know them. I knew they were a part of the town or from the town that I lived in, but they just started attacking me verbally. And what I did was I kept walking and I did not reply back at all. Once I got away from them, there was no more conflict. That's the amazing thing about conflict is it does take two people to have a conflict. And if you're one of those individuals in the conflict, it's sometimes best to just get away from the situation, and then the conflict is over and there's no more argument, no more conflict at all. And so that's a really good intervention that you can use for yourself to get away from it and to end that conflict right away. A lot of kids your age, and I think that social media has done this, is it's emboldened students to go into conflict. So we see videos and sometimes we think that they're hilarious and they go viral because we see these huge, really loud arguments in public spaces. And a lot of times that conflict was totally unnecessary. You as a young person do not have to go into conflict with people. Sometimes, somebody might be staring you down or this or that, or you might think one thing. You still don't have to respond to anybody in public. You can just keep on moving and focus on yourself and the positive things that you need to do. So I'm going to end this video, but I just want to make sure that to remind you about the three things that I talked about on the video is always, always, always treat people with respect and equality. Seriously consider and respect other people's views and opinions, just like you would expect them to respect your views and opinions. And then lastly, if the problem is unresolvable or if the problem is unnecessary and doesn't need to be a conflict, then get away from the conflict and get out. Follow those three things, and you're going to find that you'll have a lot less conflict in life, or the conflict that you do have has a productive and positive outcome. Thanks, Tigers, and make it a great day.